Overtime was created by Matt Holman, founder of the EMW Foundation, and is made possible by the Prodigy Media Group and RPM Athlete Performance, with inspirational credit to my friend, Dr. Fred Obi. Welcome to Overtime, an open conversation series on racism in the sport of lacrosse. We hope you find this thought-provoking, educational, and it leaves you better prepared as a member of the lacrosse community. Thanks again for joining us, and now for this week's panel. Welcome to Overtime, a candid conversation on racism in lacrosse. Tonight's panel features students, college-age athletes that are willing to put themselves out there and share their stories. And so we're going to get started with introductions, and we'll go with ladies first. First is Lia Willis, who was born and raised in Waldorf, Maryland. She began playing in 5th grade at the age of 10. Initially, there was only a boys team in her town, so she had to watch her older brother play at La Plata, if I said that right, high school. Thanks to Title IX, the Girls League formed the following year, and she is currently at Arizona State, where she is a major exercise wellness major. So welcome, Lia. Next, we have Keagan Galbraith. Keagan was born in Atlanta, but moved between North Carolina, Washington, and Georgia. His first exposure to the game came at age 6 from some friends in Seattle. He is currently a computer science major and the team president for the Georgia Southern team, which is a proud member of the MCLA. Go Keagan. Next we have Juwan Woodson. And I love the fact that your coach said no relation as far as he knows. Chaz Woodson is his new coach, but born and raised in Charlottesville.
For the DNA test.
Juwan was born and raised in Charlottesville and the Palmyra, if I said that right, areas of Virginia. He first saw the game at a very young age, but he didn't begin playing until the 10th grade. He is now a criminal justice major at Hampton University. Welcome. Then we have Jon Fox. Jon was born in Princeton, spent his younger years in Dallas, and now resides in New Canaan, Connecticut when he's not at school. Jon was introduced to lacrosse at age 5 by his father. He is an American Studies major and plays for the University of Virginia. And last but not least, we have Aidan Baker. Aidan was born and raised in North Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. He is from the Squamish Nation. His introduction to the game happened as soon as he could hold a stick, and he began playing at the age of 3. Aidan played and majored in accounting at Ottawa University in Kansas City, and he continues today seeking his master's in finance. So welcome everybody. I was speaking to Aidan offline and trying to get him to say his name in his native tongue, and I'm gonna put him on the spot now and see if he'll do that for us real quick.
Start off hot squad Noya Chukwam Tomi Khanak JCM. Just want to say good afternoon, everyone. Thanking the creator for this beautiful day and allowing us to get together today. Aidan Queen Snow, Tanachin Kla, Humotsin Okumel, Amanatsin Squallow, and Elk Tansaquato. My name is Aidan Baker. I come from a village of, the name is Capilano Reservation out on the west coast of British Columbia, from the Squamish Nation. And just want to thank you guys for having me here today and giving me the opportunity.
I appreciate that, Aidan. I know I put you on the spot by doing that. But I asked them to do that for 2 reasons. One,
no worries, man.
One, we had another Squamish Nation friend of mine, Pete, on earlier, and he was the one that recommended Aidan and asked me to ask him to say his name in a welcome in his native tongue, that he speaks the language really well. But also, excuse me, got a fly. For most of these conversations, some certain things have come up that I think relate well to the lacrosse community. And I wanted to ask you all your perspective on this. This is my one question I'll ask you is, how are you versed in the history of the game? I guess, Aidan, you're excluded from this because you grew up with it the way you did, but how was the history of the game expressed to you when you first began playing? And is it something that you fall back on today or at the start of any season or during the season? What has your experience been with the history of the game around the teams you participated on? Have you learned anything? Has a coach had a talk, that talk every year or something? I'm just curious to see what's going on out there in the world for you. And you guys just feel free to take it one by one.
I can go first. For me, honestly, not much was really spoken about the history of the game while I was growing up playing, or like I knew the background and certain things about it, but not really an emphasis on it until I got to Virginia. And Coach Tiffany puts a lot of emphasis on it. He practices with a wooden stick and has talked to us a bunch about the playing for the creator. And our first scrimmage I ever had here was Coach made it a medicine game, and we had the ceremony before, and that was awesome. And another thing he had us do was my first day on campus, he had us all write down why we play the game, and then put pictures or reminders of that in our locker room. So every time we come into the locker room, you can look at that picture of you as a little boy having the lacrosse stick in your hand, or for me, it was a picture of my uncle playing at Virginia and certain things like that, just to kind of, when you're in the grind of a practice, class, everything, you get to your locker, you can remember why you play and find that little boy who kind of fell in love with the game.
Nice.
I can go next. So I think my sophomore or my junior year, we had Chief actually come bless the field before our first game.
Lia, I need you to speak up a little bit. Just
No? Yes.
still a little faint. But just lean in a little bit. You'll be fine.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, just get a little closer. Yep.
So I said my sophomore year, I think it was, we had a Chief actually come bless the field for us before our game once, and that was a cool experience. But that was really all that I've heard from a coach, or the closest thing that came with history about it.
Yeah, so I'll hop in. My situation's kind of similar to John's, where I didn't really hear about it ever playing in middle school or high school. And then once I got to college, we have Coach Lowe here who is really interested in the history aspect of lacrosse. So we're trying to kind of introduce some of those things that John was talking about, where we have reminders for why players play, stuff like that this year, but we haven't really done that in the past. So I think that's something we're going to try to do.
Yeah, so same with me. I didn't really, when I first started playing, nobody had told me about the history of the game and where it came from. And I kind of found out on my own when the first time I saw a wooden shaft. That was what it was. I saw a wooden shaft and I was like, that's odd. I've never seen a shaft made of wood before. And I think somebody had mentioned to me that was like, yeah, that's the first shafts were made out of wood. So I said, what? And so I kind of did a little research on my own because I wanted one. And I guess I ended up digging a little deeper than I thought I would. And I kind of realized that, the history of the game, I kind of started reading up on it. And then I believe it was 2 years ago, my sophomore year, we actually played a game. I forget who it was against, but we played at the U.S. Lacrosse headquarters up in Maryland, and they had a whole museum dedicated to it. And that kind of furthermore drove it home. I don't know if you've been there, but I would definitely go check that out if you have the opportunity, because it's like an interactive museum where you can watch videos and it talks to you, and you can put your hands on some of the the sticks themselves and stuff like that. Really get a sense for it. But yeah, so like everybody else, nobody told me about it. I kind of had to find out on my own.
Okay, Aidan, I do actually, it does make sense for you to share the same, answer to the same question from your point of view.
All right, yeah. The game of lacrosse is just, I think, rich in my community. Kind of digs deep all the way down my lineage on my mother's side, my grandfather, my great grandfather, and all the way down the line had played lacrosse. So ever since I was born, I was always kind of just playing lacrosse within the community, and then getting into like the mini type like box league at the age of 3, and just played box lacrosse pretty much all my life. And yeah, slowly just got introduced into field as I got older, kind of into my teens. But yeah, for me, it was just box lacrosse all my early childhood, and every summer, still to this day, have just played box lacrosse each summer. So yeah, the history kind of has been told, and remains a really rich part of my community, and trying to express that and share this knowledge is kind of what we're trying to do today, and exactly what we're doing right now. So yeah.
And my point about the history is that, excuse me, I think that's something that we can all kind of circle around within our sport and go back to, and realize that the game means much more than us as individuals, and that it has that it has so much history behind it, and that I think can really help with the diversity and inclusion aspects to the game, and people respecting it, players of color being equally treated as a white player. It shouldn't matter, because the game does not belong to any of us. It belongs to all of us, and it was a gift from a creator. So we should all seek to value that much higher. I think that would help our sport. Because a lot of these talks center around, you get back to like diversity and inclusion, and where you started playing and when you started playing, and do you have access to play and things of that nature. But we as participants, we're just stewards of a game that we should, take much more care of than what we do. We kind of overlook it sometimes. So we're gonna jump into some of the questions here, and they're all meaty, so I can't really start you with a softball one. But I'm gonna get you thinking. Was there ever a time you did not want to play anymore? And if there was, what kept you going? Anybody can answer it. You all have that thinking look on your face, so I'm just going to pick them.
When I was in high school, my coach, she was saying like, if you were a freshman, you couldn't play on varsity, like you didn't like get any time, and it was frustrating. So she simply just made me not want to play more, because she wasn't listening to like her own players. Like regardless of the score, she just had more respect for seniors, even if you had the same level of play. And it would piss me off because I was a minority on the team. So I was just like, is it just simply because I'm a freshman at this point? Because even the other freshmen, she would play a lot more than I did. And it would piss me off. I didn't want to play anymore. But, one thing that kept me going was that I just like to play. So regardless, even outside of high school, I played on a select team. And I knew my potential. I knew my worth. I knew how I played. So that's just something, it was another bump in the road. Just like you have to get over it. And I learned from it and learned how to move and communicate around it. So I'm here now. So yeah.
Ed, who's next?
So I had basically, I mean, I don't know if everybody can speak for this, but since I started playing lacrosse so late, like 10th grade, I just was trash. Everybody was just, I mean, especially my high school and where I came from, lacrosse was like something you picked up. I mean, it was something you picked up when you started getting that coordination down. Like we had kids that were playing since you know, they were in the 3rd grade, 2nd grade. Parents bought them lacrosse sticks when they were basically fresh out the womb. And, you know, here I am, a baseball player who had no knowledge. You know, I knew lacrosse existed, but it was always put kind of in the back of my head as a baseball player as like that weird sport that nobody plays, or just the other sport during the spring season. So when I made the switch to play, I just was so far behind, and it was just hard for me. I mean, even doing drills and stuff in practice, it was just, I'm always dropping the ball. I'm always missing ground balls, and, you know, I'm holding up lines and stuff like that. And I guess the thing that kept me going was just, I had a couple guys that really, coaches that really supported me. And, you know, I just kind of like, I'm one of those people that just, I refuse to not be good at something, like, especially like if I want to do it. So like all the factors just kind of like push me to just be better. And, you know, eventually I just kind of put in the time, and I made it work for myself. And yeah, so.
Yeah, I think for me, the one time that like I kind of like struggled with like continuing playing was coming to college. You know, like I played for 2 pretty decent high school teams who were always making runs in state playoffs and that kind of thing. And just coming to college and like noticing it's like club lacrosse, you know, it wasn't really like something I was super into. If I was gonna play, I would kind of like came into it thinking I would rather play in like the like NCAA or not play at all. And I ended up like coming out to a couple practices, you know, and just kind of thinking it wasn't like super serious or whatever at first. And I kind of thought about like not playing for a moment, because I kind of have the mentality where if I'm gonna play, I kind of want to win. I mean, I want to win, you know. I'm not just out there to like have parties and hang out with the guys. So I kind of decided that like, I guess what kept me going was that I knew a couple guys on the team, and they like really wanted to turn the program around. And so they kind of like got together and had like different meetings about what we were going to do and how we're going to turn it into a serious program, you know. And that was 3 years ago, and we went from like 0-8 to like making the playoffs now, and we have like 50 guys on our team from 14. So I think it was worth it in the long run.
Yeah, I think for me, I think just like growing up in BC, there was the kind of the difficulty to play on a successful team, to get the exposure, to be able to get drafted into the junior A league, and then from there on into the WLA. So unfortunately, like my point when I was really struggling with like trying to continue playing this game was like not getting drafted into juniors or the senior A league. So kind of being disappointed, and you know, if I'm going to play, just like what Keagan said, like if I want to play, I want to like be successful and play on a successful team. So at that point, it was more so like, do I want to just like, you know, play on a low ball team, or do I want to keep pursuing playing for a junior A team? And I think for this game and the love that I have for it is essentially what kept me going, to be able to work towards playing for a junior team. And yeah, so.
I think for me, it was my first year here at UVA. Like early in the season, I had a couple pretty rough games, like back to back, and had gotten benched in 2 games, like before halftime, and they were really bad. But I think just like what kept me going was my teammates, like super encouraging. Coaching staff kind of sat me down and helped me out, and was like, I guess I felt like I didn't like belong out there after those, and they were like, well, you're out there for a reason. Like that stuff happens, and just those sort of things like helped me get back and get back on the right track.
Interesting. So right now, or your last team for you, Aidan, what does your team's personality look like? How does that apply to things you do, like lifting, team activities, practices, etc.? No,
I think the go ahead. Sorry, could you like just, what was the question? Just like, what's the team atmosphere like?
Yeah, what was the team personality? You know, teams kind of take on a personality, and how does that affect, or how did it affect for you, your team activities, lifting, practices, and just social time?
Yeah, I definitely think getting everyone on board, kind of like refer to it as, hopping on the train towards, working towards like a championship and getting everyone on board is always a challenge, right? Because like you got kids that show up to college just to hang with boys and party it up and just live that like lifestyle. But I don't know, my personal experience was just like a mix of both. And there was those kids that, you could tell that wanted it, and that would carry over to how they would train on their own time and during team lifts, practices and whatnot. So it was challenging, definitely, get everyone the atmosphere more so on like a grind mentality than just, people there just trying to ball out and have fun. But yeah, that's kind of what I experienced.
I think for us on this team, like, well, we're all super close. Like we all live with each other. We have like 3 houses next to each other with like 7, 8 guys. So we're always like hanging out with each other and doing stuff like that. And I think like competitiveness, I guess, is something that you see a lot, whether it's like on the field practices, whether it like gets chippy in practice or certain drills. Like there's no just like kind of days where you're heading out to practice and it's not intense or competitive, and then that carries over to when we're just hanging out, like playing video games or spike ball or whatever it may be. Like that competitive nature kind of shows up throughout.
Anybody else? That was the easiest question.
Yeah, for us, we have
But
I think we have some pretty competitive aspects too and that kind of thing, but we're also trying to like do more like stuff as a team, like have more of a lacrosse community off the field, we're trying to like get stuff started. We have like tutoring sessions, and then we have a couple guys on my team trying to do like a Bible study. So I think we're trying to extend like the like camaraderie on the field, I guess, kind of to like off the field activities, get closer as a team. So that's kind of where we are, trying to extend the competitiveness to like turning our group into good friends too.
and these days, so I'm going to take your Bible study, Keagan. How is that received by the team? Because it kind of falls in line with what's happening this summer, which you've all had to experience besides COVID, but all the racial injustices and things like that. I think this question kind of leads us to that road of how are you addressing that as a group, and is the bond that your team has formed strong enough to like have these discussions even amongst yourselves before you seek maybe outside help or participate in something like this? So I'm just curious, like when you say Bible study, that can sometimes be polarizing sometimes for those that don't understand, or they just may not have had that in their sport. Do you remember, or do you have a sense of how it was received and how it kind of developed as your program?
I mean, yeah, that's something we like just started. So we've only had like one meeting. We're planning to have another one tomorrow, but it actually went over pretty well. I mean, we're from like Southern Georgia, so our team is pretty religious for the most part. So it wasn't super like polarizing in that aspect. But I mean, we also try to extend some of the stuff we talk about there to real issues. And my team's pretty diverse, It was like half white guys, half black players, a couple different. We have like a Mexican guy on our team this year, which is kind of cool. Like who like is a foreign exchange student here. So they all kind of came, and we had like the like Bible study itself was a diverse group, which I think kind of helps the situation, So we'll see how it goes going forward, but it started off pretty well, in my opinion.
Nice. Anybody else?
Oh, I was gonna say my team. I would say we're all accepting. Like everyone is from everywhere. So like I'm from the East Coast, but like a lot of my teammates are from Kansas, Washington, California. Like we have 3 Canadians, so like everyone's from everywhere. And also over the summer we had like a discussion about the Black Lives Matter and everything that's going on, because I'm from Waldorf. I don't know if anyone knows where that is, but it's close to DC. So, you know, I was right there. But I kind of just like talked about like my experience in lacrosse being Black, and like a lot of it, you know, you don't know who you're gonna impact like when you're talking. So like my teammate actually made like this like really cool image of me and talked about, you know, her perspective of my story and how, you know, we all just want to come together to change our locker room, because that's all we can do. You don't know who doesn't like you or who does support you, but if you can change the space that you're in and help give perspective, then that's helping better the world. So that was one thing that we did, and I felt very comfortable telling my story and talking about things that bother me, that I've been through with everyone. So it was helpful and it was nice to be heard.
That's the key term, being heard, you know, and not only being heard, but when you're on the other end of that, truly listening and realizing that Lia has a story, Aidan has a story, Jon has a story, Keagan, Jovan, you all have a story, or Juwan, excuse me. And when you get in those situations, you've probably seen it in just this summer. You see people, social media, which is the worst place to be on, first of all, but you know, they're quick to jump back with, what about this and what about that and what about this, or you know, and this is not the kind of thing you reply with what about. You just listen and you ask questions of things you don't know, and the person sharing the truth needs to understand that maybe the people don't understand what you're going through, so they're going to ask you questions. But Lia, I think you hit it on the head, being comfortable with your teammates and creating that bubble, because it does start with your teammates, and then they can take it one by one into their own lives. And that's how we as a lacrosse community can affect change. So I applaud you for that. Did any of you ever experience racial injustice in college or growing up in the lacrosse community? And if so, was it addressed? Anybody?
Yeah. Sorry, would you like to go? No? Okay. Yeah, I think I definitely had like a few experiences growing up, playing box lacrosse at a young age. There was always like rivalries between like the different teams, and yeah, playing for the team that I played for, we were called like it was like the North Shore, just kind of like the North Vancouver team. But yeah, there was definitely like a few instances where other players would know that more than half my team was from the Squamish Nation, and I think it was a little challenging, especially like be some crazy instances where like even some of the fans and stuff like that, there'd be kind of like stuff going on between them. So it was like both on the floor as a player, and then kind of off the floor as well. So, and I don't think it was ever really like addressed. I'd probably say like let's say like 10 years ago, it wasn't really ever like talked about, I think, as much as it would have been today if stuff like that were still going on. So I think, yeah, that was it.
What I was gonna say was like, being a female and like the hair situation, I've had a couple of like questions about like braids or like faux locks, and like if my hair was real and stuff like that. I've also been asked like if my skin burns, like if I can get sunburnt, like, and then like I know. I've also like when you go to like showcases like Nike camps and stuff like that, you know what I'm talking about? Like finding a partner or like someone to actually like pass with, like everyone kind of comes in like as a clique already like knowing each other. So it's like hard to like reach out and be like, oh, like, hey, do you want to pass me, or like, you know, like set up like plays to like make yourself look good, because everyone's too busy worried about themselves. And it's like, I felt like an outcast. I'm not saying like straight up like they were just like no because of this, but that was one thing I experienced. And I also experienced like in those situations, it's not like someone's addressing it for you. Like it's something you have to be like the girl was like, does your skin burn? Like I'm like, I don't know, 11. I'm looking at her like, what? Like that's nothing like the coach heard. That's nothing like anyone can step in and do. That's at that point, I'm like, why are you asking me that? Because like, who raised you? You know what I mean? Like that's something that's hard at that age to deal with. Because I mean, you're a kid, so those are just my experiences.
And for the record, everyone's skin burns. It's skin. It just takes longer. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, there are. I know I had experience, and it was in high school, and then actually post-college club, which was really interesting because you're a young adult. You know, I was in my mid-20s by then. And both times in high school, I didn't hear it. Actually, my teammates heard it, and they were my defenseman heard it, and they apparently beat up on the kid a little bit legally within the game, and then didn't tell me. I didn't know this till years actually later. We were just hanging out, and they told me one time, and I thought it was funny. And then in post-college club, I just looked at the player, and I think some of his other teammates heard it and were just like, what are you doing? And fortunately, we were on offense, and I'm a midi, and I just went and got the ball. I ran. He was a D midi or something, a short stick. I ran right over him in a bull dodge, scored, ran back to him while he was still on the ground, and said anything else, and then just walked off. That's how it was handled. And his teammates were like, dude, that's not how we play. And my teammates were like, what got in you? You're so mellow. And I was like, nothing. And I didn't, that was it. I typically don't respond to ignorance because you can't argue with it. You can't, that's just something that your parents teach you. You don't argue ignorance. You just don't do it. So, but I would say to all of you, if you're ever in that position as a teammate, some of you, hopefully all of you, will go into some type of coaching after, or it's part-time coaching, give back to the game. One thing as a coach I've always done is you address it right away and you believe that player, because you'll hear stories, and there's been coaches on this talk that have said the error I made was I said, really? And then I went to the other coach and we couldn't believe, it's not something that I know any player of color I've ever been around seeks to just say, coach, the person just called me the N-word or they did this. It's not something we're just going to throw out to like cause trouble. If it happens, it truly happened. And that coach told a really good story how he felt like at that, and he was young, and he said it was the first time it ever happened, and he didn't feel like he did enough for his player. And then he got, unfortunately, the opportunity, and fortunately, years later, to a different player, different situation, but similar. It was a racial slur, and he acted what he thought was much better. And the player actually said that he was very pleased with the way his coach responded. So I think it's something that all of you just believe the person, stand up for them right away, him or her. And I like that this indoor soccer group in San Diego, the coach is Landon Donovan, I guess is a huge big time soccer player, but he's the coach now. I think it's arena soccer, whatever it is they were playing, and one of their players is gay, and the other team made a slur to him, and the players all heard it. You could see, like on the film, you see the players going, what, and apparently the player that had the racial slur cast to him turned around and said something back to the guy. And the referee comes in, it's the old second act kind of thing, came in and red carded him and was going to toss him out. And all the players were like, wait, no, it's this guy. And to his credit, the coach went over, he's like, what's going on? He tells him, and the players tell him, and he said, nope, we're out. And he pulled the team off the field. They forfeited the game they were winning to go to the playoffs. So that's an incredible act of support right there. I thought I had never seen something like that. I'm like, man, he was like, gone. And the other team's like standing there. The other coach tried to deny it, and then he came back, of course, after. It's like, oh, I wasn't trying to deny it. And, they did end up finding him and finding the player and suspending them. So obviously it happened. Moving on. This is a good one. So how are you guys at your respective schools getting involved in actively pursuing change beyond just conversations? And change being, as we're talking about social injustices and equality and items of racism. And I've kind of, like, I ask you guys to submit questions. I always keep them anonymous because I like to see everyone's responses. But at his school, they've joined a running club that promotes racial equality. And I assume that's as a team, which is pretty cool. They did 100% voter registration across their team. And they do a Take Back Our Grounds walk. And I assume that's kind of like a take back our grounds of on the basis of racial injustice. But he's just wondering, could there be more, or what conversations are you having as a team? Open to all of you.
I can hop in here just because, like, I guess give some context. Like, over the summer, we had Zooms as a team talking about different things, and usually, like, we'd read, like, some part of a book or something, and whether it was, like, whatever it had to do with. But we watched the Netflix documentary, the 13th, I think it was called 13, about the 13th Amendment, and then we had a team Zoom about it. Kind of like when we were getting off that Zoom, we were talking like, this is a great conversation we're having in July, but how do we make a difference when we're all back together on campus in August, like in Charlottesville, and actually do stuff? So I just thought it was a good question to see what other people are doing. And those are just some of the things that we've done. And it's not for the full team. I guess it's just like certain small things guys have done, but I guess more of just like moving it past conversations to getting out there and doing stuff.
Well, you're basically looking at, action, words to action, I think is what you're saying, John. So you guys share away, what have you been involved in? And usually it's a comfort level. I know for me, that's why this conversation came about for me, because I'm not, that was what I was comfortable doing. I felt like we need to have more conversations, open and honest conversations. So what's going on Howard's campus, ASU, to some extent, if you know anything at Ottawa, Aidan, and Georgia Southern.
Yeah, so at Hampton, I mean, I don't know if all y'all know, but it's the HBCU. So, I mean, I would proudly throw out the fact that, like 90% of our population is Black students. And then that other 10% are, Caribbean, really just kind of from everywhere. Like, we got a lot of culture at our school, in terms of, people from outside of the country that are still like, Afro Latinas, stuff like that, and Latinos. So we're very diverse. And really, it's kind of weird to say, but I mean, in terms of what we've talked about and what I've seen as much is, it's kind of just, I don't know. It's a weird feeling because we're in a little bubble kind of in ourselves and just being surrounded by like people. So it's almost as if we don't necessarily need to have these conversations amongst ourselves because we kind of already know, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can really go, and I've definitely done this before, but, you can kind of go up to a random student and just kind of know, you know what I'm saying, like how they're feeling about a certain subject. We talk about stuff in class, I'm in the Zoom classes and stuff like that. And some of these conversations will go up, and you kind of hear students talk about it, and you can hear in their voice where it's like, man, and it's not necessarily what you can do or what you're gonna do, but it's just, I'm tired. You hear a lot of, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of seeing it. I'm tired of reading it on the news. I'm tired of seeing it, on social media and stuff like that. So, there's a really like a real sense kind of, and without us being all together, just from what I'm picking up from being in class and having these conversations, like there's a real feeling of just tiredness and just over, what's going on in our country right now. And, there's not one person to blame or, a handful of people to blame, but just, it just is, it is what it is right now. And, myself and what I'm doing is, I'm working right now actually, but, I'm in a rural town with a lot of people with a lot of views. I know my guy goes to Virginia here. He'll tell you, Virginia is a weird place, man. But one of the things I do is I challenge people. If they come into the store and they and not like in a bad way, but like I challenge people and I ask them and I challenge them to think differently. And I think that's something that we can all do. And if that person is comfortable with talking to you, then do it. Have that conversation. I will happily talk to the guy with the Trump flag and the Confederate flag on the back of his pickup truck if he's willing to talk. I'll have that conversation. I'll sit down, I'll have that conversation. I'll talk to him all day if I have to. And just to see where he's coming from, because that's really what it's about. You know what I'm saying? Like we're all, everybody in the Zoom meeting is different and we come from a different place. And that's kind of what needs to be understood. And I get you got your thing and I got, you get that I got my thing. And that's cool, no matter how we look at it. And I feel like these conversations aren't willing to happen these conversations are happening because people aren't willing to have these conversations because, they swing too far to what they believe and just, they stay away from it. So really kind of, I guess what I challenge people to do or my teammates to do is open up and have these conversations and be willing to be open and stuff like that. And, honestly, I feel like, at the end of the day, we can all vote. We can all go, do all this stuff. But, that's cool and all. But, we need to have these conversations. We need to sit down and talk. We need to realize that, just because we don't look alike or we came from a different place, we all still people. And, I feel like genuinely in my heart, like that's what needs to happen. So, yeah.
Ron, it's Sunday and you're preaching, sir. No, but that's true. I'm glad to hear because that is it. You said it though. I think you really hit it on the head and I know what you mean by challenge. You're not challenging someone like, oh, it's a duel. You're just saying, okay, express your opinion.
Yeah, like let me talk to you. Like where are you coming from?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
right.
It does take two of you because you're right. Because some people just will say, no, you can't change their mind. And that goes back to then you start going in, well, there's a certain level of ignorance here. I can't speak to him or her. I'm not going to spend my energy on talking to a brick wall. But when someone says, oh, but this is how I believe because I read this or I did that, and you go, okay, here's how I would see that story, and you express yourself. So I think I commend you on challenging your teammates to do that. But it's tough as a Black player these last 8 months, a Black person really, women and men, because you are. I'm tired. I get tired. There's some weeks, and there's weeks I took off from this conversation, and I just kind of went quiet for 3 or 4 days. And the people that helped me put these together were like, "Hey, what's going on?" I just needed a break. I just got to take a break sometimes. And so I like that. Lia, were you about to say something? Or yes?
I was gonna say.
I'll just cut me off if you need to. All right, this is your time now.
I was gonna say, well, so I said I talked to my teammates, but kind of like what he was just saying, you get tired. But at the same time, I've already said what I've had to say. I'm curious your actions behind it because I could talk about whatever it is till I'm blue in the face. But I mean, it's how it impacts you. And then I know on campus, like some people, I saw a protest like when I first got here, but like COVID, and I was like, I don't know about that. Plus, like the area, the state I'm in, it's a a red state. So being a woman, sometimes I'm like, I'm going to stay away from this crowd. And the closer we get to the election, I'm just like, watch my surroundings with certain things, because you don't, like I said, you don't know how people wake up and they react to what's going on in the world today. Some people are happy things like this are happening. Some people are mad, but I applaud you for having those conversations with those random people, because you are braver than me. But like I said, my goal is just to change my locker room. And like I talked about things I've gone through, and I hope that you can help inspire someone else, or your view is changed, because like I've mentioned movies like that you can watch and stuff like that, but it's all about your action towards it. So
Yes, I think movies are, in movies being, there's some good content on Netflix. And I, not that I'm doing a shameless plug, but on our EMW Foundation page for Overtime, I've kind of been plugging in movies and books that people have read that are panelists. And I've been putting them, all the books are ordered, and I have them sitting over here reading them one by one. And the movies I watch every few days. And they are really helpful. When They See Us is very strong. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag for John, but I think your Virginia team is going to be challenged to watch that soon. We had Coach Tiffany on, and it was Coach Gina Thomas from Cincinnati, who was one of just three Black NCAA, I think it's Division I coaches, but she said her team, her players actually came to her, and she has a diverse roster, but they came to her and said, we want to do this as a project. So they watched When They See Us. And I guess it's multi-episodes. So they would have talks as a group after each episode. And this was just, I think, in August when they came back to school. So, and I just say that as kind of half joking, but I know Coach Tiffany was really interested in how she administered that. And I thought that was a neat tool to use. You know, you have Netflix, pretty much everyone can access a Netflix account. So Keagan, in like your position as a team president, that might be something to use as a tool to spark conversation. But there are a lot of, I know we've had, they're much older than you guys, but Harry Alford, who's a Maryland grad, and he's a very well-spoken individual, and him and his brother Thomas graduated from there. They're Black twins, and they both have spoke to the current Maryland team as Black players sharing their perspectives. So things are happening like that, and that might be something, you know, check your alumni database, have them speak to your players. Lia, I know with ASU being such a new, you know, you don't have a lot of history there as a program. But you do have community members that I know in Phoenix that I know would be happy to ever assist if need be. Aidan, I don't know many people in the Kansas City area. You're going to be the champion out there on your own. But I'm gonna lob this next one at you, because this is a good way to start wrapping up. Let's see. So have any of you ever experienced lacrosse in an area where your team is pretty much the only team, and you're trying to help grow the community in the region? So maybe your college team there's not a lot of high school play or youth play or something around you. And if any of you the question is if any of you have any experience, tips at starting programs in areas or communities that are underserved, that aren't, you know, your prominent areas, if you have any suggestions or tips. Aidan, I'll start with you. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, no, it's I definitely can relate to that. Just coming from BC, like kind of how large lacrosse is up there, and coming down to Kansas. Like 4 years ago, my freshman year, I was actually like one of the first student athletes for this program, and just like lacrosse didn't really have any kind of position down here in Kansas. in the Midwest, I'd say. Obviously, that's different on, the East Coast compared to, where I'm at. But it was definitely challenging because, like, high schools just recently started getting teams within the last, like, 5 years. And within that, there's not really many colleges, I guess, like, around here that are kind of, the only one would be like Rockhurst. I think they're D3, but other than that, there's not a lot of lacrosse going on here. So I've been actually fortunate enough to be a coach for an organization called Heartland Lacrosse, and we're coaching athletes from the ages of like 8 all the way up until like 16, and it's just great just getting out, and it's challenging to like grow the game kind of with not a lot going on, but it takes time, and just kind of the word of mouth is what I think truly helped cross going and get people interested and trying to educate them on. I think the cross is growing, especially with what's going on with the Uruguay Nationals and all this stuff. But the game's growing early, and it's great.
I'm sorry, I muted myself. Anybody else?
So we used to do this really cool thing during the fall when football would have games at our school, because Hampton's not a really big area for lacrosse either. And I think part of that's attributed just to the fact that, I mean, it's a mostly Black area. So, I mean, you see a lot of basketball, you see a lot of football, you don't really see a lot of baseball neither, but you see a lot of those sports, but you don't see lacrosse. I don't even think they play lacrosse at any of the high schools or middle schools or anything around that area. So at the HU football games, because they're really big community events, we used to set up a couple cages, just kind of like in this little area we call the kids zone. And we had there was like a little football spot and like a big jump house and stuff like that. And we set up a lacrosse goal in between it, and we'd have the whole team come out probably like an hour before the football game, set everything up, and then throughout the whole game, everybody would just kind of stay. And you see kids come over and they'd be so curious because they'd be like, "What is this?" You know what I'm saying? Like, what is this? I want to see. And especially because, you see Black players doing it as well. So, it's very inviting to that community to come and see what lacrosse is. And so, we got little toddlers walking around with sticks up to, like 16, 17-year-old kids who are like, "Oh, what is this?" I'm like, "This lacrosse." And they'll be like, "Oh, this that sport with the sticks, huh?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, it's fun. You should come try it out." And they'll come try it out, man. And and not that we're, starting programs or anything, but, it kind of plants the seed of that, hey, Black people do this too. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, so maybe, I don't know, maybe down the road, one of those kids might grow up and say, "Hey, Mom, Dad, buy me a lacrosse stick because those kids showed me how to play lacrosse at their football game and I'm interested." And that same kid might go to their athletic director at their high school and be like, "Hey, can we put a team together? Even if we don't play a season, can we just practice?" So, I mean, it's little stuff like that, at least in my mind, I feel like, it does something, and I feel like stuff like that has a snowball effect. And maybe one day we might see a little Hampton High School lacrosse team. So,
Juan, I think you just put a challenge out to yourself, sir. You started your own youth program, little halftime games at Hampton and stuff.
Hey man, we'll see.
You got a head coach that knows how to get you going. True, right?
I was gonna say if it's similar for me in like my area, lacrosse wasn't something a lot of like the Black community was doing, especially like growing up. So my senior year, I remember I was teaching like these freshmen who wanted to play on like JV how to play lacrosse. And recently one girl, she's now like 21, 22. She reached out to me and was like saying thank you just for like showing her how to play. And like I said earlier, I mentioned you never know who's watching you. So I never knew how, how close that was to her heart about me showing her how to play, because it's not like huge. But also this summer I had a opportunity to like assistant coach on a club team from my old coach who used to work here at ASU. And there was this little girl, this little Black girl, and she showed up to practice and was so excited that I was there and I was at this level. And prior to me coming to practice, my old coach was telling me that she didn't want to play anymore and didn't want to participate in lacrosse because no one else looked like her. It's like just me showing up and talking about lacrosse and showing her how to play and catching, like, it just made her more comfortable. So that was an opportunity I've had to give back. But even in Arizona, there's not a lot of lacrosse because like the inaugural team was my freshman year. And we did a lot with like little camps, and like everyone was so happy that there was another level in Arizona. Like my coach would say that it's just starting at like middle schools and high schools. So like there's select teams now, but any way I can, I'm trying to give back, because I know I wish when I was that young, someone that looked like me was telling me it's okay to be here and, it's okay to be comfortable. You don't have to run track or play basketball to make it to a Division I sport.
I keep muting myself. But yeah, that's a recurring theme, seeing players that look like you or at least similar, and that's cool that you're helping out. Your old coach, his husband, her husband is the current men's coach at the ASU club, right? Yes. Okay. So then I do know her. I know all kinds of people in Arizona. I got my eye on you. Huh?
Brittany Connor?
Yes. Yep. And Jessica Livingston, who's been on, she does the Arizona Girls Lacrosse League. I think she helps to run that. And then I think it's Arizona Burn. No, I think it's Burn is her club team or something. But I don't know. We'll talk offline. But all of you, I think this is a good place to kind of conclude. I just want to let you go around the horn, let you all speak. Anything that we missed that you wanted to mention on this type of call. The floor is yours. So who wants to? I'm going to let Juwan, you go first because I know you're at work. I was picking on you for moving around. Then I realized when you said you're at work, I feel bad now. So sorry.
It's all good, man. Basically, I feel like I've talked enough, but get out there, talk to people, vote, and I don't know, man. Just be a good person, I guess. That's really all I gotta say. Just be good peoples.
That's very strong because being a good person seems to be hard for some. Who wants to go next? Keegan?
Yeah. For us, I think that it's good for like me to get in on this conversation. Being in like rural Georgia, like 3 hours away from a big city, in like a college town, it seems like sometimes like these issues we're kind of like we're not really watching the news. Most of like the college students down here, so we're not really like having as much conversation as we should. So I think it was pretty interesting to hear all you guys' ideas, and there's definitely some stuff I want to take away from this, like the team voting kind of sign-ups and trying to get lacrosse more involved in the community, especially since we're in the middle of nowhere, So thank you guys for some of your suggestions, what you're doing with your programs.
John?
Yeah, I can kind of like piggyback off Keegan here, like just being on a team while we're like fairly diverse in like geographic locations, like we're an all white team currently, and just like being able to like have these conversations. And I guess while like I was looking for like I guess like action things to do, Like Juwan, like what you said about just like having conversations is like the most important thing. That's something that I'll take away. And then also, Leo, when you said just like you want to make change in your locker room and like you taking in that small step, I think is awesome. Whereas like, I guess maybe in my mind, I was thinking too broadly in a sense where it's like start small with your locker room, those guys you're with all the time, and just try and do stuff like that.
Take care of home first, John. Always home first. Lia, and then we'll come to Aidan at the conclusion here.
I would just say thank you. Had another perspective. I enjoy just hearing what everyone else is doing and how they're doing it, and that this is like a conversation. Like this is helping. So like you took something from me, and I took something from you, and you know, it's just I'm grateful.
All about sharing. Aidan, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Your video pops on when you speak. That's interesting. Okay. Your thoughts?
Oh, weird. Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys. Yeah, thank you guys for your time and your thoughts. This is exactly what we need to do, is just, you know, have talks with each other. And I'm grateful for everything that you guys have said, and, you know, being able to start small and go back to, you know, the teams in our locker rooms and just, you know, kind of start it all there, because like we said, you never know who's listening or watching, and that's all it's about, is just talking and sharing our thoughts. So yeah, thank you guys.
So I will say thank you to all of you taking time out of your Sunday afternoons or evenings, depending on where you are. I know there are some other students that missed out on tonight's call, and we're going to have them on hopefully next week. If you ever have a desire to, you know, you want to come back, just let me know. Any other students watching out there, hit us up at the ot@emwf.org address, and we'll get you on. But again, thanks for those that are watched. Hopefully you got something out of it. Let's commend these students for leading the way and making people better, because that's all we need to be, is better human beings. So that's it for tonight. Post a question to the panel by emailing us at ot@emwf.org. We'd love to hear from you.